Welcome, people. It's a bit of a chilly night out, and so thanks for coming along and giving us coming along to tonight's discussion. Entrepreneurship is a topic that I feel very passionate about, and have done so for many, many years since I dropped out of school, as Veronica said, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. I was asked by Paul Babby and the team about talking a little bit about my research, which is in the entrepreneurship side of things. I focus both on business entrepreneurship as well as social entrepreneurship. And tonight I wanted to focus a little bit more on the social entrepreneurship side of things. But before I get to that, I thought it may be best if you see, first of all, the journey that I've went on to, which kind of explains how I've become interested in this topic. And then to explain what is entrepreneurship. It does mean different things to different people. And then I just want to talk about a few of my current research projects in the social entrepreneurship area. So I'm ignoring my business entrepreneurship side of things tonight. So first up, how did I actually get an interest in this area? Well, as Veronica said, I left school at an early age, 16 actually, and I was doing my year 11, and I was always a rebel there, and the headmaster just did not like me and told me it would be better for the school and better for me if I moved on. He told me that I was going to be a nobody. I was a nobody, and so I took his advice, and at that stage I thought, wow, I was really disappointed in him and in the school system. So I left, and I started going to art school initially, the Queensland Art School, doing dress design, designing women's clothes. And a colleague of mine from school said, look, why don't we actually set a business up in manufacturing men's shirts? His parents owned a shirt company. And we thought that they were doing the more traditional shirts, and we decided to do something different. And in fact, one of the clients of that shirt company exists in Adelaide still, Peter Shearer Menswear. I used to work for Peter Shearer's in another life. So we set up our shirt business, and we designed and manufactured men's shirts. And they took off big time because we didn't know it at the time, but they were quite innovative. And by the time I was 17, the business was reasonably successful. We generated enough cash. I bought myself for cash a nice sports car, a Lotus Europa at the time, and an MGB, as young lads do, who have got no brains whatsoever. So, so we did that, and the business was going great until a little thing that happened. That was that we didn't really understand how business properly worked. So my business partner was off writing checks on things, and I was writing checks on myself. This is the day before credit cards, and only one of us had to sign the checkbook. And so before we knew it, he'd been writing with my writing checks. We had no money left. We were both writing checks without talking to each other. And the business went belly up. And it was an important thing for me, and I think it was the best thing that could have happened to me. So had to sell my sports cars, and as Veronica mentioned earlier, I went to go and get a job. And so I decided I'd move from the women's design. I realised I wasn't cut out for designing women's clothes. So I went and started an apprenticeship as a tailor and worked in a rock band overnight. And that's how I paid back the creditors. Basically, I was earning more money in the rock band than I was as an apprentice tailor. So, and eventually that generated enough money for me, finished the apprenticeship, and then went on to high school overnight and did my matriculation and went to university. And I always, because of that early stage with that first business, I became interested in business and what made businesses work. So I wanted to actually get a job as an accountant, and that specialised in corporate insolvency. And so I joined a firm, a national firm, Ferrier Hodgson & Co. And we specialised in winding up companies, but importantly turning companies around. So, and that gave me great insights into what makes companies tick, and the importance of people in any organisation, and the importance of a team in any organisation. there, because most businesses that I came across, it's not necessarily the business was problematic in itself, it was the people weren't talking to each other, they weren't communicating properly, and as a result, things didn't go right. So my days as a chartered accountant there, I still am, but in the insolvency area, taught me a lot. And then there was another sort of phase where I moved on to actually set up an Australian university in South Africa. And the university, it pulled out because it was worried about the financial side of things, and that the government, the ANC, may be too socialistic, too communistic, and may socialise all business. So I was faced with the dilemma. They were a 50% partner with us. When they pulled out, it meant we owned 100% of the university in South Africa. It was an Australian university, private university. And we were faced with the dilemma whether we actually pulled out ourselves or had a go. So we decided to actually mortgage our house, and we pushed ahead and we set up that university. Our first program was an MBA program, and the MBA was most expensive in Africa. And after a lot of problems in the early days, I was facing losing my house at one stage there. But we kicked off after going from 3 prospective students to 53 students. When we opened our doors, we became the biggest MBA program in all of Africa, and we had more MBA students combined than all the South African universities. That taught me a lot about the importance of, once again, teamship, innovation, finding a niche there. And it was interesting then because for me, what was important for where I am now in my social entrepreneurship research, because our MBA was the most expensive, I used to drive by the townships in South Africa and never really wanted to actually know about the people there. And I used to think kind of, why don't these people just get a job? Why, how come they're stuck in this rut there? Get off their bum and do something. And how wrong I was in thinking that. Because now I spend a lot of time in the townships in South Africa working with disadvantaged people, and that's part of my research that I want to really talk about tonight. And then finally, the last probably important sort of piece in the puzzle for me was in looking at investing in other people's businesses, working with one of Australia's oldest venture capital firms. So I was a director of a fund, one of the 5 funds at the time, and we invested $1 to $3 million in growth-oriented entrepreneurial businesses. So that taught me a lot there too about what makes businesses tick. So this is my foundations, and then from there I've had a passion for actually helping other people and finding out more. So this provided a pathway for me to university and doing what I do now. So I've mentioned the word entrepreneurship, but what is it? Let me just talk to you a little bit about what entrepreneurship is, so that it'll provide a context for my research. First up, I should say that there's no one universal explanation for what entrepreneurship is. It means many things to many people. Most people, if you go and talk to them, they think anyone who's in business is an entrepreneur. And that's not the case. If everyone was an entrepreneur, everyone would be millionaires. Because the more entrepreneurial businesses are very, very successful, and they generate high levels of wealth. They are responsible for high levels of employment in our communities, and they're responsible for generating some of the innovative things that we just take for granted. They help to improve the quality of our life. But I've just put a few explanations up there, or definitions of entrepreneurship. The first one is by gentleman Joseph Schumpeter. I've just kind of paraphrased what he said. He said it's about creative destruction. That's what true entrepreneurship is about. It's about someone coming along with something different and usurping the current practice or way things are done, or the current technology, or whatever it is that exists. And so this gets destroyed and replaced by the new. Someone else said, yeah, that's fine, but it's about creating and building something. Some sort of risk is involved though. Another group of authors said, yeah, but it's about starting new businesses. But these could be small, they could be medium, they could be even large organisations there. It doesn't really matter. Entrepreneurship cuts across all facets. And then the last one up there is one I really truly love. It's developed by a guy called Howard Stevenson back in the 1980s. But he says it's a process of creating or seizing an opportunity without regard to the resources that you currently own or control, for that matter. Why I love it, why I like that explanation, is because most people think about going into business, they think about the money. You know, they want money. Find some money so I can set up a business. This explanation says, no, that's wrong. That's stinking thinking. You don't go down that route. It's not about the money. It's about the quality of the opportunity. How good is the opportunity? How truly exceptional is it? If it's an exceptional opportunity, then other people will want to invest in your business, and they'll provide the money, perhaps. So I love that. And I've learned when I set up our business in South Africa, the first one, we never put any money into that. Other people saw what an opportunity it was in setting up a university at a time when there weren't enough university places. And so if we had by setting up a university, we knew that we were going to get students there because there was a niche in the market. I mentioned that all businesses are entrepreneurial. Most businesses, perhaps I'm really generalising here, most businesses in the world, many fail, but for those who succeed, you know, they've got some sort of growth curve. So here we have on this axis here, net cash flow. That's the positive above the line, negative here, and this is time. So we have over here, someone starts a business, they start investing in it, before it starts generating sales, it's losing money, and then eventually it breaks even and starts taking off. More entrepreneurial businesses will have a steeper growth curve. They look something like this. So yes, they start off as an idea in somebody's head, people started investing in them, and then they started ramping up their sales growth there and the like. And so what I'm particularly interested in is actually helping businesses that look like this and turning them into things like that. Of course, not all businesses can achieve that. As I mentioned, the quality of the opportunity is really, really important. And many businesses are just me too, same old type businesses. They're built around nothing quite distinctive there. But that's, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The applicability of entrepreneurship and talking about where is it relevant? Of course, most people think it's relevant in the startup stage. And as I mentioned earlier, it's also for existing businesses, small and large. But it's also relevant for profit and not-for-profit businesses too. And it's important for those people who want to set up businesses. They're called opportunity entrepreneurs. These are people who see an opportunity and want to actually proceed and exploit that opportunity to set a business up. But you know, most of the entrepreneurs in the world are built around those people who don't necessarily want to set a business up. They have to set a business up out of necessity. Why? Because they haven't got a job, perhaps. There's no social security. So what do? Starve, steal, beg, try to live off their family, or start a business, have a go. So these sorts of people we call necessity entrepreneurs. And so in many developing countries, most developing countries, all developing countries, you will find necessity entrepreneurs. But indeed, they're not just limited to developing countries. Necessity entrepreneurs also exist in developed countries. I mean, you can have people like people who are perhaps on the pension in a developed country like Australia, and they're finding that the pension is not going far enough. So they work at trying to actually do something else on the side to try and develop to improve their income. It could be a single mum who's got a few children, and she's struggling to do maybe working during the day and or receiving some sort of benefit, and she decides to actually do something on the side. And indeed, if you think of Anita Roddick and the Body Shop, You know, she had a few children. It was, she had a passion for making cosmetics and the like, and she had a go at actually trying to get that off the ground, working out of a garage in the backyard that backed onto a lane initially. And look where that took her. And that's the important thing with necessity entrepreneurs, which I'm going to touch on a bit more in a minute, because if we can actually help necessity entrepreneurs, those who set up businesses because they have to, and convert them to those people into businesses where they want to, and it's because it's built around a true opportunity, then our economy is going to actually benefit. I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. An important part of entrepreneurship is innovation. Like entrepreneurship, it does mean different things to different people. In essence, it's about an idea, something new that creates value for somebody. And where these two intersect, that's where innovation happens. Many people think that invention is innovation. Not right. Something that comes out of a university, the output of someone's research, for instance, is not an innovation. It's not an innovation until someone sees value in it and gets it to market, until it's commercialised there. So, and if we look at the patent that are lodged around the world, most of those, all of those are inventions. It's not until they actually get to market that you can actually and talk about them becoming true innovations there. Just as I mentioned, that not all innovation is just about products. It's process, systems, whatever, financial. And there are different levels of innovation that we need to think about for entrepreneurs while the transformational innovation is what grabs our attention because that's what ends up in the press, we shouldn't underestimate the importance of incremental innovation and substantial or breakthrough innovation. Most of the incremental innovation is limited to the companies. You never really hear about it. It's the transformational innovation that we generally hear about because it's applicable to the world and substantial innovation, it gets out to a certain extent. Why I'm mentioning this? Because innovation is core to growing businesses there. And if you're not innovating, then there's going to be problems with your business in terms of its sustainability and or growth. In terms of what underpins the entrepreneurial process, there's a model put up by a gentleman called Jeff Timmons, and I've just reproduced that here. In essence, he said, and this came from a textbook, Jeff Timmons is dead now. He died a couple of years ago from a heart attack, but he said there's three key drivers that underpin any business. It's the opportunity, the quality of the opportunity, which I've been talking about, the quality of the team, and the resources that are important to actually making that venture work. And the better the fit between the opportunity and the team and the resources, the closer the fit, the better chance that that business is going to hum. So if you've got a team that's a complete mismatch with an opportunity, let's say the opportunity lies in the medical area, but no one on the team has any understanding of medicine, not a very good fit there. So you want to actually build teams that actually fit the opportunity. And of course, these all exist in an environment there, and in most entrepreneurial situations, these environments are they're not level playing fields. They're environments that are changing and changing over time. And let me not forget the founder here. There's always got to be a leader of a team. Leaderless democracies are destined to failure. So if I just actually go through and have a look at each of those little bubbles there, we talk about the lead entrepreneur. George Bernard Shaw was not talking about entrepreneurs when he first mentioned anyone can start a love affair, but it takes a real genius to end one successfully. But why I put that there is because anyone can start a business, anyone can have a go, but not everyone succeeds in getting their business off the ground. Fewer actually become significant businesses, and even fewer manage to actually list on a stock exchange around the world. The quality of the people are really, really important, but it is important to have a go. But if you if people go down the lane, that go down the road less travelled, and embrace some of the principles of entrepreneurship, then there's a greater chance of their business succeeding. If we have a look at the team side of things, so having a look at the founder, let's have a look at the team. Well, there's a pithy throwaway line from an investor point of view that goes along the lines of, well, we want a top team, and we want a top technology or product or service, for that matter. We want an A-grade team with an A-grade technology or product. But if we can't have that, we'd much prefer to invest in a team that was A-grade with a second-grade product rather than the opposite. Why? Because it's not products, services that get businesses out of trouble. It's the people that drive those businesses there. So that is really, really important. I mean, if I was to give everyone here in this room $1,000 or $10,000 and say, go out and try to go and invest in a business or do something with that money and come back in 3 months' time and let's have a competition to see who's made the most, then depending on what you invest in, we'd probably find that some people may have lost the money, other people may have got the money back, and other people still would have made a good return on that money. So what's different there? I mean, with everything else equal, it's about some of the strategies that are actually employed. It's a people thing. People are important. The final thing is the quality of the second thing is the opportunity here. If we just look about that, what is an opportunity? Well, opportunities are durable things. They're timely. The window of opportunity is open, and people are interested in what's going on in that space. It adds value for the buyers. But the thing is that opportunity is in the eyes of the beholder. What may be an opportunity for you may not be an opportunity for me. But having said that, there are some common characteristics of opportunities that investors are well aware of, professional investors who put their money up, and successful entrepreneurs. There are common traits. I haven't got the time to go into all of them tonight, but just to mention a couple of things that that are what investors look for. If we have a look at the slide up here, we've got on this axis we've got that return or reward, and this axis we've got risk, low, medium and high return, and low, medium and high risk. And this basic finance maxim says there's a trade-off between risk and return. So low risk, low return, medium risk, medium return, high risk, high return. So being simplistic here, we've got a straight line there. So you put your money in the bank, you're not going to get much money out of it, but there's not a high risk if you're losing it. If you're going to put your money in a new start-up business, people you don't know who have got very little experience, high risk, and a rational person would want to get high returns on that. But you see, the more entrepreneurial people and entrepreneurial investors, they don't agree with that. They're looking for opportunities that sit out over here, where there are high returns, and somehow the entrepreneur has been resourceful and thought about how do you actually bring that risk down? How do you reduce the risk? And that's a hard issue. It's a challenge to do so. But these are truly the space of more successful businesses. So risk and return is with the risk reduced underpins entrepreneurial businesses, the more successful ones. The more successful ones as well are couched in the areas of adversity, in solving problems for people. You see, if you've got a problem and it won't go away, and you've tried and tried, but you can't do anything about it, there may come a stage where you actually go and ask for help, and you may be prepared to actually pay for that help, particularly if people aren't giving that away. And you've only got to think about some of the more terrible situations in the world, Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever, parts of Africa, where there's incredible adversity, incredible problems that people face, and they want the hurt to go away. So huge opportunities there in these situations for entrepreneurs, huge opportunities. You know, places like Iraq or Afghanistan and the like, you know, people who can provide infrastructure, food, clothing, schooling, roads, whatever. Even body bags in those sorts of places. There's money to be made in solving people's woes. Of course, the risks are very high there. Well, I want to go there. I can see the opportunities there. Do I want to go there? No way. Because if I go back to my previous slide here, I don't know how I can actually reduce the risk in those sort of situations. In fact, probably facing the opposite situation in a country like in those sorts of situations where you've got very high risk and you know, you want high returns, but it may be very hard because of corruption and so on that goes on there. But if you can set a business up solving other people's problems, you've got a chance of actually being a success, having a successful business. Not the only thing that drives it, but that is one of the important things. If you have a look at the resources side of things here, successful entrepreneurs try to access other people's resources, OPR, other people's resources. Try not to use your own, try to use other people's resources here. Even if you've got the money, but it makes good sense to try and use other people's resources, because if your business goes belly up, you've got less there to worry about, to lose. So successful entrepreneurs try to minimise and control resources. And the name of the game really is, from an entrepreneur point of view, is to start off with a little business, a speck of an idea like that, and to grow it over time. That's the challenge. And this is where successful entrepreneurs make serious money, is from the capital gains that they generate. Income is important, generating an income stream, but you should never forget about the capital gains. And to be able to do that, to achieve the capital gains, you've got to, any entrepreneur starts out with the business built around them. They're passionate about it. And the challenge is to divorce yourself from that business so that actually others can run the business for you, and then you've got something to sell. So you've always got to think about, most people who go into business think about, they're preoccupied with starting the business and never think about harvesting the business, having a harvest strategy. It's like farmers. They go and buy crops, buy seed, they put it in the ground, they nurture it, water it, fertilise it, the crops grow, and then they harvest it. We've got to take a page out of the farmer's book there. Because there comes a time, even if you don't want to sell your business, that you may have to. Old age or illness. My late brother had a very successful business in Australia, but he used to go around the world, getting the latest designs on women's nightwear, go to the fashion shows in Paris, London, New York, Los Angeles, wherever around the place, go to India, have those designs made up. And he was one of the major suppliers to many of the department stores here in Australia. And he got a brain tumour, got 2 brain tumours, actually 2 types. He never actually thought about harvesting things. The whole business was around him. He was the biggest strength and the biggest weakness. When he died, my sister-in-law found it very hard to try and get the true value for that business. Why? Because the business was around my brother, Gary. And so it was sold for only a fraction of the price. It taught me an important lesson there. You've always got to think about getting out of your business when you're actually getting in your business. Very important. Does entrepreneurship contribute to economic and social development? Most people would think so. There's a curve I've got up there. Let me just explain what this curve is about. So on this axis over here, we've got the level of entrepreneurial activity that goes on in a country. Low levels of activity here, medium and high. And on the bottom here, we've got the level of economic development in a country. So low, you've got your developing countries here, very destitute type countries, that extremely poverty stricken. to quite developed countries like Australia, US and so on. So what do we find? If you have a look at there's a major international research program that goes on called GEM, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, which monitors the level of entrepreneurial activity in different countries there. And what they've found is that in the less developed countries, there's high levels of entrepreneurship going on. And at first, people couldn't work this out. They're saying the results are spurious. It's ridiculous. How can you say a country like India or a country like Brazil has got more entrepreneurial activity going on than a country like the US? And then they started delving into what was going on here. And what they found is that the sort of people who were setting up businesses over here had to set up businesses. There was no option. These were our necessity entrepreneurs. Most of the businesses in these countries were set up out of necessity. People who had no option. If they wanted to feed themselves, feed their family, they had to do so. They had to set up a business. And they found that the businesses in the more developed countries were more based around opportunity entrepreneurs, those who wanted to set up businesses. But as I mentioned earlier, you can actually have necessity businesses set up in high developed countries and opportunity businesses also set up in low economic developed countries as well. But these are the general findings. The challenge is whether, how can we actually get these necessity entrepreneurs to move to set up, as I said earlier, to set up a more sustainable business? Because most necessity entrepreneurs, it's self-employment. They're setting up a business around themselves. They're not employing people. They're not engaging in innovation. And remember, we started off as saying that innovation is really important to entrepreneurship. So these businesses, there's a question in some people's minds is, does entrepreneurship really contribute to economic development in some countries? And some of those people would say, well, in a developing country, I don't know about that, whether it actually helps or not. But I would argue that whether it does or not, it is really important because there are non-economic factors as well. For a start, whether it contributes to the economy, it's certainly, if someone locally can set up a business, whether it's selling oranges by the road, whether it's selling ties, men's ties or something where it's fallen off the back of a truck, which you sometimes question where some of the items come from in some of the developing countries there. It's helping these people to survive. It means they don't necessarily need to do crime. But it also, as a result of that, it may be able to, it may contribute towards their life expectancy if they've got kids, actually helping improve the lives of their children, perhaps their education skills, improving their education, but also importantly, improving their self-esteem, helping people to achieve what they really want to achieve in their life. Because many people in poverty situations never actually get the chance to be able to do that. And there's been many studies done while you'll have some researchers saying, well, we don't know whether entrepreneurship really does help in these developing countries. There are other studies that actually say the opposite, that entrepreneurship is really important in disadvantaged communities. And it does actually contribute. And, a couple of well-known names, which probably many people would know of, certainly the first one, with the Grameen Bank and Mohammed Yunus, setting up his microfinancing operation there, helping, starting off in Bangladesh and financing primarily women there to actually start businesses there, which certainly most of them didn't turn into huge innovative organisations that employed hundreds of people, but it actually helped these people get up out of the mire and to support them themselves. and also a shocker with Bill Drayton there. While there are questions about whether entrepreneurship some people can question whether entrepreneurship does actually help disadvantaged communities, there are people who are actually out there who demonstrate that it certainly does. So with that as a background, I just wanted to mention a couple of my social entrepreneurship research projects so you understand the sorts of things that we're doing. The first one, there's three of them I just wanted to actually talk about. The first two are in South Africa. And this particular one, we were working with 287 nascent, all these people are unemployed, I should point out. 287 socially and economically disadvantaged people. They were all indigenous people, mainly Xhosa, some Zulu people in South Africa, mainly from the suburbs of townships surrounding Johannesburg there. And what we did was we actually introduced, we recruited these people and we introduced a one-year training program for them. So the study went over 4.5 years. We had a one-year training program there, and there was 3.5 years later, we actually went back and visited them. In fact, we took three sets of measurements. We took a set of measurements before they started, we took a set of measurements immediately after they finished their training program, and then we waited 3.5 years to see to what extent that training actually had an effect on them. What we found was that, because some people say, can you teach entrepreneurs? Can entrepreneurship be taught? It certainly can. You can teach the basic principles of entrepreneurship. Whether people want to embrace it or not is another thing. The old story, you can take a horse to water, you can't make the horse drink there. So what we found is that out of the 287, about 53% of those people at the end, 4.5 years after they started the program, had actually started businesses. And 51% who never had jobs, long-term unemployed people, had jobs. And myself and one of our research team, we sat down and we interviewed 45 of those people, about an hour interview with each, and to find out, what they thought of our training program there. It was a training program. We had mentors, and we also set up a business incubator for them as well. And they all attributed their success to our program there. Because it's a longitudinal study, it's one of the few in the world that we can actually look at with some sort of degree of reliability. Because some of these measures that we took, we looked at people's attitudes, people's personal values, their intentions to set up a business, their well-being, a range of things. And some of these change over time. So it depends on when you actually take try to measure someone's, for instance, well-being or someone's attitude. Depending on what happened the day before or the week before, you may get a different measurement actually if you took it the week after or a month after. So by doing a repeated measures, longitudinal study, we're actually able to actually get some reasonable insights into the data we collected. The second project, which I'm currently working on, the previous one's finished. We're just about publishing papers now from that. The second one is in South Africa as well. It's a little bit different. We're working with young children here in Year 4 in school. Why? Because the South African government asked us to actually focus on children. Because they said if we want to try and change the culture in the future for South Africa, trying to teach adults how to be entrepreneurial is too late. We want to change the culture and teach young kids how to be more entrepreneurial, more enterprising. And there's a major problem because we're working in some of the squatter camps, townships in South Africa, in two parts, just south of Soweto in a place called Lenasia and surrounds, a rural area there, and up on the Limpopo, towards the Limpopo province, towards the Zimbabwe border there. And a lot of, some of the kids, their parents, they don't have any parents because their parents have died, and or they struggle there to actually make ends meet. And they don't live in houses as we certainly know housing, and some of them live without running water and toilet facilities. It's quite heart-wrenching. So what we've done here, and I'm just going to show you one of what we've done to try and stimulate their learning. It's not just entrepreneurship we're trying to impart to them here. We're also trying to teach them literacy, numeracy, and try to keep them on at school. So one of the things we've tried to do is to try to stimulate their learning experience. So we've developed up a 3D virtual world, which has kind of blown their mind when you're actually out in the dust and that sort of thing, in the mud, and introduced them to this. So half their lessons during a part of a day done in a 3D world, and the other half is done normally. So I've got to apologise for the quality of what I'm going to show you now. I actually downloaded some software to show you provide insights into this virtual world, and I wanted to edit it, but I didn't get a chance to do so. But just to start with, I thought rather than access the internet, I just took a video of what we were doing. So this would be a teacher, for instance. This is the world that we've developed up. It's not, for those who know Second Life, this is not Second Life. We've actually developed it up on OpenSyn, because we've actually given this to the schools. We've developed this, spent our own money on this. We haven't got a research grant. We spent our own money on developing this up. Sorry, my computer was flicking a bit there. I'm just going to speed parts of this on there, just because it goes for 12 minutes, and I don't want to run for that. But we've developed up, that was a landing spot where the teachers and the kids first go into this virtual world. We've developed up a series of houses to show them what people can live like. And we've also developed up a little township there, a western township, to teach them a few things. So for instance, we have a pharmacy down the road here. And when they go in the pharmacy, we can teach them about hygiene and vitamins and the like there. We also have a supermarket. We teach them about good food, staying healthy. One of the things I haven't got on here is that we have what's called a heads-up display, a HOD, which runs across the screen, which monitors their well-being, their thirst, their hunger, their age, whether they get sick or not. And so we have a virtual health system running, and they have to pay for things. So part of actually teaching them the entrepreneurship side of things is they have to earn money. They start off with some money, and then they have to do things to be entrepreneurial. And they have to go to a doctor. There we can teach them, in here we have a full clinic here, and we have what we call bots, robots and that actually, this is a quiz here where you can see that the person here is actually clicking on, they've got to try and get memorise two things to try and get it right there. And they get money if they win, if they do get it right there. So this is on nutrition. We teach them here about food and the like. And then we have over here some markets, which they're more they more understand. At the markets, in the houses that we just briefly showed beforehand, they could actually grow food, and they could actually sell the excess food here to sell that to other students there in the place, and they can buy their own food here as well. We have a schoolhouse here where they go and do their lessons. There they sit down at those desks virtually, and then the other thing we've done, we've actually got 3 virtual worlds. I'm only going to show you 4 virtual worlds. We have the base world here, and we have a lot of these children have not seen animals as we elephants, lions, and whatever, and so we have a safari world, and they can actually make animals here virtually out of the parts in this world here. If they get into that Jeep, and I'm not going to do it, that takes them to Safari Land, where they actually get to learn about animals from all over the world. I just didn't want to put that in here. I haven't got the time. But what I am going to do is take you to our spaceship. So I mentioned we have 4 worlds. We have the base world, we have Safari Land. With our spaceship here, this actually to teach the children about space and the solar system. So they actually get into our rocket here, and they go up to a circular what do you call it, whatever it is that revolves in the sky, I can't think of it at the moment, a space station, thank you. And here they actually don a spacesuit here, and they go outside and walk on the moon's surface here. So we'll just try and spin this, or move this on. So here they get dressed up in their spacesuit, and then they go through a couple of airlocks to walk outside on the surface of the moon here. This gets the kids, the kids love this, I can tell you. And so do the teachers, though, as well, there. So then they're out on the moon's surface. They make money by, there's questions and craters and that sort of thing that they can ask. We have a moon buggy here, which they touch, and this actually teleports them to a theatre where they can actually learn about the solar system. So in here, as you will see, we actually have the planets in our solar system moving around. They're all to scale. And over here, you have aspects on the planets here where that they can actually learn about those planets there. So I'll just speed this up. So just going back, they go back to the this airlock, and they go through that. They go back to the rocket, and that takes them down. And I'm just going to show you. So we also have an underwater world. We have a yellow submarine over here, and we teach them about underwater life. So about whales and all the bits that you'd expect. We have an underwater suit. I haven't bothered putting it on here. We have scuba gear for them to get into, and they go through another airlock here, and they go out actually into the ocean. And as I say, I haven't got their scuba suit on, but I just sort of show it on here. There's quizzes. They earn money by doing quizzes and learning about sea life there. Just the final thing, I'm just going to come into sort of the end of my topic there. They get back in the submarine over here and back on their base world. I just want to show you how we teach some numeracy. Some of the things we do to teach numeracy. This whole world is built up out of shapes. They're called primitives. So those coloured things there, triangles, rectangles, cubes, whatever, whether it's a tree, whether it's a building or whatever, it's all built out of those different shapes. And so we actually ask them to build a house or to build a chair. And they love playing with these blocks. And then we tell them to build these things out of using certain dimensions and that. And so they start doing maths and they don't even realise it, and they just absolutely love it, love the situation there. So love what they're doing. So, and then they have a big sand pit that they can actually play in. These sorts of things around here are quizzes, places for them to actually do quizzes there. Their houses, they've got to pay rent. They've either got to buy furniture or make furniture, and each house here has a little plot of land where they learn how to grow crops. So we have an environmentalist who specialises in how to grow good practice for growing crops, and that's built into the curriculum here. Pearson's, the publishing house, were good enough to provide us with a lot of the material here that fitted in with the Year 4 curriculum in Gauteng and Limpopo provinces there. So, so that was a little bit about just our virtual world there. If in terms of our team, there's the guy with the hat on is our programmer. He lives in Texas, and the guy on the left there is the guy who's from an organisation on good crop advice. The lady in black is our team leader there, and there's other members of our team, including myself. So this is one of the schools we are, Tesetsko Bezikala School. One of the little kids looking at the 3D virtual world. We're also in a number of different schools. This is a Muslim school we're working in there. You can see here, I put this up, there's all razor wire, which is kind of what a lot of these places are like there. And over here is the housing. That's some of the better housing. The photos are not very good. We're in Africa, so there are animals around in some of the parts where we are up in the north there. This is a typical sort of shanty house there and that. So the last one I just wanted to talk on, just to finish up, the last topic is on, we pulled a $2.97 million grant last year to work with intellectually disabled young people. And for my part, there's two parts to the program, one working with little children, and the other part's working with young adults, and I'm working with the young adults. And this project is just about to start. We're developing up a certificate in new venture creation, essentially entrepreneurship. And instead of having chat rooms in there, we've embedded a 3D virtual world. I'm not going to bother putting that up, I haven't got the time. And so we're working with young people who have autism, high functioning, and also acquired brain injury. They're damaged either through car accidents, perhaps petrol sniffing in Indigenous communities and that. We're operating in Darwin, Adelaide, Sydney and Melbourne. And that project, we're just about finished all our certificate for. We're working with a registered training organisation there, and we've involved people who specialise in disabilities there to help us develop it up, as well as a 3D virtual world programming team. So that was a little bit on my research projects there. Yeah.